Hi guys, welcome back to ABG, Asian Boss Girl, the podcast for the modern day Asian American woman. I'm Mel.
I'm Helen.
And I'm Janet.
Hello, it is currently 9:45 p.m. on a Monday working night. I'm a little high off these
Cold meds.
Oh my gosh, you're like bouncing off the walls.
I know.
Now.
I'm pretty I don't know why I have
Mel
some
has
energy.
a coffee. She just took cold meds, and she's had a week where she's essentially working 2 jobs right now because you're like transitioning, right?
Yeah, so I'm transitioning right now. I'm repeating what you just said because I'm so hot. I'm off these meds, but yeah.
I'm on these meds.
You guys,
They're legal. They're legal meds.
They're
I got them for rounds. They're for my cold. I have the flu. Yeah, but my Monday has been already crazy.
We are tired from work, and it's only day 1 of this week, but we are excited to be recording another episode for you guys. Thank you for sending through your questions. We have a variety of topics, everything from love, romance, and sex to Asian culture questions to work and career, which we get a lot.
We do.
I feel like this is one of those late night shows where people like tune in. Did you ever listen to like the radio
hours.
shows? Yeah, after hour radio shows. We're like, ooh, we're gonna talk about love, sex, and food,
and Asian culture. Oh God, yuck. So one of our first questions is from Madeline. We got an email from her, and she asked us, "Have you ladies heard about the 5 love languages? If so, it'd be a great topic for you guys to discuss." So, Janet, my love. What is your love language?
What is my love language? My results are outdated. This was maybe over a year ago.
Okay.
But my top 2, they tied for, I got an 8 for acts of service as well as quality time. And then the third, where I got a 6, is for words of affirmation. So those are my top 3.
In terms of acts of service, what's something that if someone were to do for you, you're like, this is...
So it can be everything from practical stuff to maybe less practical, just really sweet little gift type things. I think the best gifts are when people make you something. I had someone bake me a cake once for my birthday as a guy who doesn't bake at all, and I thought that was really sweet. If you make me dinner, if you actively plan the stuff that we're going to be doing, those types of things, I think are really sweet.
And also, jumping off from our last episode talking about first dates, you do when the guy takes initiative and plan things, right?
Yeah. I was going to say, I realized from the episode, I sound super demanding. I'm never going to find a person. No. After listening it to the 5th, because I was editing it, and then when I listened to the final, I was like, shit, I don't find anyone.
There is for sure a man out there who will
ready to
value you enough to provide acts of service.
I totally agree. So,
what about you ladies?
Yeah.
So I am also acts of service.
What number?
10.
Oh,
dang.
Wow. I think that's 100% then, right? I don't know how this scale works.
Yeah.
Service me. Just kidding. And then 7 for quality time, and then 5 for words of affirmation. Oh. And then the other 2 are physical touch and receiving gifts. Mm-hmm. Both are 4. I think that is totally true in my relationship, where I agree. It's if someone does something for you to alleviate your day or to make you feel better, it just feels like that's where the love really is.
Yeah.
Rather than someone saying oh, you look beautiful today. I'm like, I know. So
Tell me something I don't know.
Just kidding. But yeah, I think it's, especially for us because we're so busy, I think when someone does something out of their own time for you, it's oh, that's very meaningful.
Yeah.
So acts of service. Yeah.
That is nice.
How about you, Mel? What's yours?
Well, I got a 9 for words
Physical
of
touch?
affirmation. No, I don't need people to touch me all the time. Actually, my highest one is 9 for words of affirmation. I think
you need someone to tell you you're beautiful.
Yeah, I do. It's more I like when people communicate a lot, so I need you to overly communicate how you feel to me, maybe. So for me to understand.
Yeah,
if you're still in it.
Right. If you're a communicator and you rely a lot on conversation and words, then that makes sense. For you, that's...
No, yeah, and I agree. I think you're also the type of person to communicate to people and just talk to people and understand how people are feeling. And so when someone does that to you and also tells you, gives you words of you're doing something well, or you're doing a great job with this, despite working 2 jobs and having a flu and doing podcasts, you're still doing great. It's just oh, thanks.
Oh, look at the smile on my face right now.
She's Mel's looking at me. She's about to jump on me.
Oh my God, no, yeah. That's so true. Yeah, I'm all giddy now. Oh my God, I'm so weird. But
No, take a picture of you right now, and that'll be like our thumbnail
Hell.
for this.
No, fuck that. I look like shit. No, but that's exactly what it is. I just love when people like affirm what they feel for me in a positive way through words. My second one is quality time. I like spending time with people I really care about. But back to words of affirmation, I just thought of something. The reason why I like getting it or receiving it is because I like giving it out as well. When I care about someone a lot, or even my friends, I speak really highly about them to like everyone I know, hoping they do the same for me. My last three is number 7, acts of service. I think we're all on the same page. Like all three of us kind of
That's our top 3. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really need gifts at all. Unless it's food. I mean, you know what I mean?
I mean, I think gifts are nice, but they're not an everyday kind of a thing. So maybe that's why the other 3 have more of like a everyday kind of quality to it. Yeah.
Right.
I would probably swoon more if my boyfriend or like a friend took out my trash and washed my dishes versus giving me like a gold necklace. It's like, oh my God, I took out my trash.
Until you get the gold necklace and you're like, damn.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised that physical touch is so low though on our scale. Like it's 4 or 5 for all 3 of us, right?
Yeah, I'm a 4. What'd you get?
I'm a 4.
I'm a 5.
The minx.
But it's the 4th in my list.
I mean, I do like holding hands and stuff like that to show like someone cares. This is so random, but there are times when I was dating someone and I would purposely not hold their hand first to see if they make the first move. And when they did, I'm like, oh, he likes me.
I actually have never met anyone with a 10 for physical touch.
Yeah, neither have I.
Right.
The gift giving one, some people, it is high on their list. But yeah, for physical touch, I haven't met someone who's.
If you're a listener out there and you have a 9 or above for physical touch, let us know.
What do you need? I'm curious.
I think we know what they need. So our next question is from Betty-Ella or Betty-Ella? Betty-Ella.
Yes.
Sorry, I can read. So her question, this is about our culture, Asian American culture. Can you talk about Asian American traditions? Things like eating family style, Chinese New Year, tiger parents, high school and good grades, playing the piano, also playing tennis. I feel like that's a lot of kids were put in tennis.
Well, okay, let's break it down for the first one. Eating family style. When you guys go home to dinner, is it always family style or does someone else?
Are these yes or no? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say, with our family, we eat family style, but what's interesting about the mixed culture is that everyone, it almost comes up a little bit potluck style. So like parents will cook Chinese food, but maybe my sister brings over something and then I have something else. Oh. And then so we often have like our meals are hodgepodge and it's like not Asian food. It's not American food. It's a little bit of everything.
Same here, actually.
Oh, like people actually bring food over?
Oh no, my mom just cooks random things.
Yeah, or they start cooking random things because my dad will like learn something from my sister and I that we like that isn't Asian, and then they like it and they'll cook it. So
I think every time I go home, my mom always makes like her Chinese traditional food. So it's always like the steamed fish or like the tomato and egg and like pork.
That was my favorite dish growing up.
Yeah,
tomato and egg with rice.
And with rice, and it's weird because they've cut down on rice, so there's never any like rice on the table anymore. I'm like, what happened to my childhood?
Oh yeah, right?
That's so weird.
My mom started eating this like Korean purple or like this it's called a kaya rice,
like the stone pot purple rice.
It looks like it, but it's a little bit different. Yeah, but it's supposed to be, I guess it's like
healthier for you.
Yeah,
that's funny. My parents tried to like do the healthy thing. They just added 1 cup of brown rice to our white rice. I was like, oh, I guess this works.
That's a way to ease into it.
Right? So it's like a multicolored rice that you get.
It's just like literally just tan and white.
Okay. Well, that's actually
it's a clever way to do it.
Do you guys use chopsticks when you guys eat dinner?
Yes.
Yes.
Same.
Yeah. Do you guys celebrate Chinese New Year with your families?
Not anymore. I know it's a huge deal. I just remember when I was younger growing up, like my mom would always play like that like traditional Chinese music, like kind of like opera like, but like super giddy and happy.
No, I know.
But yeah, she would blast that in the house and also put around like green onions or is it scallions maybe?
Oh.
And tie that to oranges and just like hang it around the house along with red envelopes. That was like a yearly thing. It was just always very festive, and she like cleaned everything and made sure we had new shoes so we can like stomp out all of the bad juju or whatever it was. Yeah.
Wow.
That was like a big celebration when I was home.
Dang, my family never did that. The only thing we had to do was every year we'd call our grandpa or grandparents in Taiwan to wish them a happy new year. And my mom always says, don't forget to thank them for the red envelopes.
Oh, yeah.
And my brother and I are like, thanks for the money. But then we actually are really thankful for it, though. So that's what we did.
My mom still calls me to remind me if it's like a birthday or a Chinese New Year thing. And it's horrible because as the years pass by, my Chinese gets worse and worse. And literally my conversation with my grandmother is like, hello, like 2 phrases in Chinese. Okay, bye. But so Mel, would you guys still like gather for dinner or things like that, or?
I think it's like if my grandpa or my grandma was in California, then we would have a dinner. But if they were in Taiwan, we would just like, let's just have a normal dinner and call grandpa after dinner. Yeah. Like, it'd be kind of more casual. But if the relatives are in town, then we'll do something.
Yeah, I think my family, when I was younger, I have memories of more like elaborate celebrations where we would, like my grandmother would put out photos of her father and the father before, and you would do in like platters of stuff. And we would still like have meals all the time. But then as the years have gone by, it's now with my parents and my sister, we just do like a family meal. I still get red envelopes from Aunts and Uncle.
No, every time I go home, my mom like gives me a packet of money. I'm like, thanks.
You know it's gonna stop once you get married, though, right?
Yeah, I think that's a rule, right? Once you have kids?
Once you have kids, you start giving it to people.
Yeah. That's why I'm not gonna have kids for a while. Okay, so she also asked us about tiger parents.
Yeah.
And actually relates to high school grades and playing instruments.
Like, how did you grow up and how did your parents parent you?
Ooh. Okay, well, so for me, my mom was our head of household, so she was the one that kind of directed everything. She never was super like tiger mom on me, but the thing that she did emphasize was grades. She put me in like tutoring after school, so I had to go like after school tutoring on the weekends for math and for English. And I remember in elementary school, before I started tutoring sessions, it was in 2nd grade, she would actually write herself in a journal math problems for me to do after school after my homework. And she will check the answers after I go back home. And I remember I was like, man, but I just want to play with my neighbors. But then no, I had to sit there in the living room and like do her math homework on top of my already math homework.
Right.
And then afterwards, then I could go play.
Yeah. My parents were tiger parents, but at the same time, I think I also put the pressure like on myself. Like when I was younger, I was like a super perfectionist. I don't know why. Like even like I would write a sentence out and then put a period down. But if I didn't like where the placement of the period was like super OCD, I would erase it and place the period again. Like it was like super. I don't know where the fuck that came from because I am not like that anymore.
Huh?
I was. But I am so not like that anymore. So I don't know where that went. But I do remember my parents would give me these like at the dinner table. They would ask me like a multiplication problem, and I went to the bathroom to calculate it. I was like, hold on, I need to go to the bathroom. And I came back. I was like, 4 times 5 is 20. And they'd give me another one and be like, shit, I don't know.
I gotta go to the bathroom again.
Dang.
So I think there was probably some like tiger parenting going on for me to be like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Janet?
You know, I always said my parents were really lax growing up, but as you guys are giving these examples, I'm like, yeah, I can relate to that.
Right. Yeah.
I think it was just very obvious that they value education and they value supporting you and exposing you to like activities that teach you discipline, that teach you like different skills. I have memories of we would have spelling tests every week or whenever, or like math quizzes, and all of my car rides to school when my dad was driving me was practicing them with him. And then and my mom also did. I was in like summer programs for like English and writing. I almost forgot about these. My God.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I did. And I also did play the piano.
So your parents made you do an instrument growing up?
So they actually didn't, when it came to extracurriculars beyond academics, they didn't force a lot. Like I was in dance for a really long time in studio dance, but it was because a really good friend she wanted to go. And so her mom called my mom to try to convince me so she would have a friend. And then it was that same friend that then was in piano. So then I got into piano like kind of through her, but my parents were never forceful. Like I did it for maybe like 4 or 5 years. And then I kind of just was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I feel like I'm not able to do other things. And my mom was like, okay, you just quit.
Chill.
Yeah.
For me growing up, my mom actually never put me in any like instruments. Wait.
She'll shove you in
a recorder.
Wait, let me start. What the
Your parents didn't shove you in a piano either?
Oh my God.
Or a cello? Does she fit in there?
This is such a Monday night.
Or your mom never made you learn an instrument?
Oh, there we go.
Man, yeah, my mom never made me learn an instrument. But she did put me in recorders. That's like the cheapest instrument class you could take me into.
Yeah. From school, right? Do they have, is that where it was?
Yeah,
from?
so, because when I was in elementary school, we had this like performance thing called Marching On, where all the schools in the district will perform for like the city. And my mom's like, oh, I want you to be in more acts, so you had to be in recorders too. And I remember during the performance, I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I was like mouthing whatever they were doing and like fiddling with my fingers. I remember one time I was like, you know what? Let me try blowing into this and see what happens. And it came so off pitch. I'm like, I just pretend to like play for the rest of the time.
Did you not practice beforehand?
Hell no.
Oh, did your mom know? Like, you
No.
should have been practicing?
The only thing I know how to play on the recorders is hot cross buns. Hot cross buns. That's about it. In my defense, I was in the dance thing and the singing thing. I can't remember. Remember the
Wait,
instrument.
at the same time as the recorder? And you were also in the recorder?
No, like separate acts, like 1 choir, 2 dance, 3 recorders.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you play any instruments, Helen?
I didn't when I was younger. I also played the recorder, but I think only because it was like a toy at home and it was like fun to play with.
We should try a duet.
Oh God, no. That'd be terrible. But I played the violin in high school out of my own desire to play an instrument.
Oh, really?
But that sounded pretty terrible.
Really?
And there were times where I would fake it as well, and I was just like, my bow was not moving at the same pace as everyone else's, so let's just put me in the back.
I remember I opted for choir because you could do the selection of like orchestra. I was like, I think singing is easier, no instruments involved, so let's just do that.
Really? I did choir since I was in 3rd grade. But out of choice, I wanted to be a pop star.
Oh, like a K-pop star?
But back then I was like, wanted to be Britney Spears, so I don't know.
So our next question is from V about Asian food. What do you think about non-Asian chefs cooking pho or ramen and charging more than the usual mom and pop shop run restaurants? And will one day Asian cuisine be known for our food rather than the subpar service and not so clean washroom? But I would rather pay less for good food and crappy service than pay more for okay food and amazing service. What do you guys think about that?
I agree with that. I feel like the best, most authentic restaurants, like Asian traditional restaurants, are ones that have that like really disgusting bathroom but really great authentic food. And I'm totally okay with paying less for amazing food and not as good of an environment or not as bougie of an environment.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's, for me, growing up when I used to go to Taiwan, that was the protocol. Like, I choose not to use the restroom and or hover over tables to grab a seat. Like, it's just what it was.
Yeah. And I think, so her question kind of brings up when we were talking about examples of like P.F. Chang's or like ROC or some of the more, actually P.F. Chang's is kind of an old example, but I guess more recently there has been like a more popularity of Asian foods, right? And so you'll go to these places where they charge a lot and they make it very artisanal and they charge like $20 for a bowl of ramen or something. And Helen, you were saying like it's nice because at least then people are getting to experience Asian cuisine who would not otherwise, right?
Right.
So
yeah, and there's a part of me that feels like, why is our cuisine the one that's super cheap compared to like Italian food, right? I don't know if you guys have seen like David Chang's Ugly Delicious. He talks about, it's actually really interesting because he puts a spin on Asian food. He always brings up Asian food in every episode, and even like dumplings, right? He says like, what is the difference between like a gyoza or a mandu versus like a tortellini or something, right? Everything is a dumpling. It's just a very interesting like spin on it. But one thing that he mentions is that I think from where Chinese food comes from in our culture, it came from like the Chinese Exclusion Act, right? Where people had to like create something that white people could relate to and actually feel like they can partake in Chinese culture that way. So because of that, Chinese food started at a much lower price point. And I think that just continued because now I saw an article recently that said Chinese restaurants, there's like 3 times more Chinese restaurants than McDonald's in the US, which is crazy in terms of statistics. But at the same time, we're like super, I say we as in it's like my food, which kind of is. But
it is.
It's like completely saturated the US, and maybe that's why also the price point stays low.
Yeah.
So I think I think the fact that there are more expensive versions of this, some people will say like, oh, it shouldn't be that way. But at the same time, I'm happy that it's getting elevated.
Yeah.
I would hope that it's coming from someone who is like Chinese or Asian American behind these restaurants that are actually profiting from it, right?
Right.
And not like a white person who's just trying to capitalize on our culture.
yeah.
But yeah, I totally support it. But at the same time, would be so down for like the dirty ass restaurant in the corner.
I think some of like when there were like P.F. Chang's and like Panda Express that people talk about, I always say if you enjoy that food, like you have to think of it as its own cuisine. It's not meant to be authentic Chinese food. So you can enjoy it as its own, it's like American Chinese food, right? But yeah, I think a lot of the more recent movements they charge a lot more, but it feels more authentic. Like in LA, there's like Pine and Crane. If you go there, that's like one of the kind of like, they've probably upped the prices and stuff, but the food actually tastes like very authentic.
Yeah.
So it's at least nice that the people that wouldn't get it otherwise get to taste the more authentic versions.
Right. Spreading culture. I think that's the only way you can do it because people are afraid of dirty restaurants.
This is true.
Yeah. All right. So we have a question from Sweet Potato. How do you intend to pass on your culture to your kids or something like that? Being an Asian American, how or what do you plan to do to keep your Asian culture alive in your life?
I think we talked about this in some of our previous episodes, but I do hope to offer the option to my kids of going to Chinese school. I haven't decided yet if it would be like a forceful thing, but I think generally as a parenting style, I would like to strongly recommend and maybe force them for like a year. And then after some point, they have some decision or right to like choose. And then in terms of culture, of just like different traditions, I think the best way to do it is to basically just have them around a lot of family, because you'll have natural family celebrations for things like Chinese New Year or like stories of like just like having them interact with their grandparents. Your parents will probably share stories about from where they came from. In terms of tiger mom parenting, I guess, from our previous question, I never thought I would be, but after we got into those specific examples of like giving your kid a little bit of, or like just promoting education more, like using like dinner time or like car rides to test them on little things, I think I will do that.
I can actually see you doing that. Same. I can see the flashcards in your back pocket right now.
Oh my God. What about you girls?
Well, for me, I always joke around that when I get pregnant or like when I have a baby, my mom's going to be flown in right away. Because she's going to be helping me take care of the kid and also be speaking Mandarin to my kid.
She's the one-stop shop for all of your Asian culture needs.
Oh, yeah. And also because like with my dad, he only speaks Chinese. So I feel like just my child will have to speak Chinese to communicate with him. Hopefully my child will be speaking Mandarin and English and whatever language my husband is. He's probably
My husband speaks.
Sorry. But another thing is food. I love cooking Asian food. That's actually what I cook mostly at home for myself. So I would probably integrate that in with my child. Like my cousins, when we were growing up, we had like congee for our baby food. So I might, incorporate that into with my child's meal.
Yeah, Tyler's eating congee now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, rice porridge.
Are your parents speaking Chinese or Toisanese with with Tyler?
They are. And then my sister speaks like English. So I think he's still very young. He's only like 6 months now. So I think he's just kind of like in that environment and hearing it. I do think when I have kids, I want to force them to learn Chinese. And I think a small part of that is because I learned Chinese, but not to the extent of how well I wish I could speak it right now.
Yeah.
And I do think that given where the economy is going, it's going to be better to have your child speak like Mandarin or Cantonese so that they can actually do business in China. I'm thinking about this from like a finance perspective.
Damn, dude.
But at the same time, I feel like when our parents moved over here, like a lot of them wanted to just have us assimilate into white culture. And so a lot of like third generation, fourth generation kids actually can't speak any Chinese. And they wish they could go back and learn more about the culture and where they came from. So I feel like in a couple of years, well, like maybe 100 years or so, there's going to be a wave of people who want to go back to China rather than staying in America to learn about their
That's already
past.
started happening.
Yeah.
Oh, another thing I thought about is like, I think growing up, I don't know about you guys, like for me, like I had the privilege of, my grandparents would always take me to Taiwan every year. So I was exposed to like the motherland a lot. And so if I had the funds and the means, I would love to take my child there at a young age, just to expose them to the culture, like of being an actual country of where we're from.
Yeah.
So that'd be really fun.
So it sounds like we're all going to be tiger moms.
Our next question is going to be career and work focused. It's from El Zanga. Hope I said this right. Says, I have a question for Helen. How do you gain confidence in the workforce? Do you have any advice for females that are entering into the new workforce right now?
I mean, I'm sure you ladies are also very confident in your job. But I would say that in order to gain confidence, and maybe this is just for me, but especially at work, it's really knowing your stuff. Like really, really knowing your stuff so that when, a problem comes up, you're not kind of caught off guard and like nervous about things, and you have a broader sense of, okay, well, I know how to attack this question and I feel confident about it. So I think it really does start off with just learning the material. Yeah. Especially at work, so that if you're not confident, then you're not going to want to speak up if you don't feel like you know your stuff, right?
That's great advice. Know your shit.
Yeah. But I think another thing is like, when you start a new position or like you start work in general, you're not going to know what you're doing because you're going to be trained and it's on the spot learning. It's like a whole new experience, but having the right mentality going into it to be willing to learn. I think when you go into it with fear, you kind of close yourself off for this opportunity.
You'll be more defensive.
Exactly.
Right.
So when you're more open to like learn and train, I think your employees or your like coworkers will see that and feel like, oh, you know what, this girl knows what she's doing.
Right.
She just needs to learn the material, and she has the right skills and foundation to take it on.
Right. And definitely ask a lot of questions, and just be like a sponge that just like absorbs everyone's knowledge. And at the same time, I think also like creating a group of friends that you can go and complain to, or that you feel like you can get advice from and ask stupid questions to.
Exactly.
That's also really important in order to be confident.
Yeah. And I think the key word that you said, Helen's like, be a sponge. Don't let the information that you learn like drain out. Because I think a lot of people sometimes at work, they like nod their head like, yes, I understand. But like, do you really though?
Yeah.
Like your goal is to really just like take in what they say and process and apply it.
Right.
That way you become a really strong warrior in the workforce.
And I think you can kind of learn from yourself too how you best learn. So something that I realized when I've started new careers, I write like a ton. I take notes everywhere because that was my way of like processing. So during a meeting, it just even rewriting what someone is saying, that goes into my brain differently than if I was typing it or if I'm just staring at them listening. So figure out how you learn.
And that worked for me too. Like I was super not confident when I was sitting in the cubicles with everyone else and on a conference call, because I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. So I would actually go into these like things called JITs, like just in time office, like small offices that you can sit at and has a phone, and I would use that area to feel more confident on my conference calls. And same with you, Janet, like typing everything that someone's saying so that I could actually see it visually and then be able to respond back to them. That also helped me build confidence in responding to people's comments or questions. Just some tips.
I actually agree with you, like what you said about the conference calls, because so I think like I mentioned, I'm transitioning to a new position. It's a lot of different learning curves, and there's so many more conference calls at my new position. I'm just like, oh my God, everyone sounds so ready to talk on the phone. I'm just like, I haven't been on a call in years. But I go to a private room to join on the calls, and I listen and how people interact within the call. And I pick up on how they communicate what they need and like the flow of it. And then I try to like implement how they speak and the way I speak.
Yeah. I actually prefer a conference call, or it depends on the type of meeting, but I find conference calls easier to be confident in or to project confidence than like in person, because it's one less level of stimulation where you don't have to be looking at people.
Person.
Yeah. And then then you're just listening, and then you could be totally like unconfident, but it's easier to project in your voice, I think, than if you have to also be standing there or like sitting at the table and something like that.
Another thing that works for me too, like this sounds so simple, but I actually write a script out sometimes. Like
I
like
usually
talking
will
points.
Yes. Yeah.
I would be like, hello, my name, and then I'll actually write out like a script.
Yeah.
And then for me, just having a safety net helps me in a call.
Right. It's preparation.
Exactly.
It's totally just preparing for what you're expecting, how you're expecting the call to go. And if it goes that way, and you're like, cool.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. And that goes for people entering into new jobs. If you, at some point, you're probably going to have to give some sort of presentation, even if it's just to your manager, like write out notes, bullet points. I find that like that's the best happy medium, because if you go in with nothing, it's hard to just remember everything off the top of your head. And also if you go in there with a complete written out script, you're going to be reading from the page and you lose yourself. But if you have bullet points, then you have places to like, what are the points you're trying to make? And then if you get lost, you have just like an easier thing to catch your eye.
I think another last point from my end is that don't care as much, because I feel like when you first start a new job, or you start a new project, you're just so worried about being like a perfectionist on a project and being able to fulfill like everyone's needs and all of that, but you're still learning and you don't know what to do yet, right?
Yeah.
And so instead of just freaking out about that, like calm the fuck down. Take a breather. Most of the time you're not like performing surgery on anyone. You're not like saving lives there.
Yeah.
That's what we say in the office all the time. Like, calm down, we're not saving lives. And that actually helps. That actually helps us to like
Takes down the anxiety. Yeah.
I mean, if you're a doctor, I don't know what to say to you.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully that's not the first thing you're doing if you're entering the
Yeah.
It takes a couple of years.
All right, our next question is from BB Haha. She asked, do you have any good book recs to read on either self-improvement or business success? Janet?
So I went through a period where I read a lot of these types of books, and there's like so many of the titles I don't quite remember, but there's one that sticks out for me, and that was one of the first books that I read when I got my first job. And it's called The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. Yeah. And it was, I bring that up as a very significant memory because my first job was a very like kind of structured corporate type of setting, and that his book is all about totally taking that concept and turning it on its head. So he's like an entrepreneur, and he forces and he's constantly like an experimenter with every aspect of his life. But this particular book was focused on like how to think through making your job work for you. That sounds like such a sales thing, but I enjoyed it because I felt like it was a very it made me realize there's different ways to work. And so as my career has progressed, I've always been kind of keeping that in the back of my head. There are ways that you shouldn't be feeling like you're tied to how things have been done in the past. There are always ways to alter.
That's probably the first podcasters I ever listened to.
Yeah, he has a great podcast.
Yeah.
Shout out to Tim Ferriss.
Yeah, no, he's great. And he interviews a lot of like world-class performers or people at the top of their game. So you can actually like, and he also does like long form podcasts where it's sometimes 2 hours long. My favorite one is the Jamie Foxx one. Did you listen to that one?
Yeah, I think I did.
That
was like an older one.
It was so good.
Yeah,
it was like mind-blowingly good, but it's like understanding their past and how they got to where they are, and also what they're going through now. So it's just like understanding their full life story.
He talked to Edward Norton too, another actor who's really he gets some really cool people on his podcast. So maybe even check out his podcast. I think that if you're looking for, he does a lot, if it's like self-improvement, he does a lot of self-experimentation stuff, and then just general like success, how high performers achieve what they achieve.
Yeah, but you just have to skip over his like 10 minutes of ads now.
Yeah.
In the beginning. I'm always just like skip. So one that actually one of my mentors at my company sent to me, and he was just like, you have to read this book. It's a good book it's like a personal guide to personal freedom. And he also sent me like another meditation book, and it took me a couple years to actually get to it. But while reading it, I feel like it's a really good one. It's called The 4 Agreements. And so to give an overview of the 4 agreements, the first one is to be impeccable with your words, avoiding gossip and avoiding like lies and empty promises and things like that. And all of these seem like very just like cliche, but I feel like once you actually start implementing them into your life, it does actually, I don't know, I guess you just have a different perspective of whatever is going on in your life, and it makes you feel better about it. The second one is to not take things personally, and I completely agree with this one. So when someone is negative towards you, I always see it as like that person's going through something. Like that anger is actually driving from a very deep place that I might not understand, and I'm going to look past that. And I feel like that has made me a lot less stressful with just like other people in general.
I totally agree. I think that perspective is something I started gaining in the last like 4 years, and it makes all the difference it makes you less defensive and more like empathetic towards people, because I do think that's true. Anytime anyone's acting negatively, it usually is coming from a place of fear or pain.
The third one is to not make any assumptions, and I think a lot of times stress can be created when you assume you know what people are thinking, and you go into this like rabbit hole of like, are they assuming this about me, or like I'm not doing enough or whatever. But at the end of the day, just having that conversation with that person can also eradicate a lot of like these assumptions that you believe people have on you or that you have on other people. And then the fourth one is to always do your best. So some days your best isn't as good as other days, and that's, I think, okay. It's doing the best that you can at any given moment, and you'll have no regrets. So I know it seems very just like lofty things, right? But I do feel like while you're reading it, you're like, oh, like that thing that happened yesterday kind of falls into this like bracket, and maybe I can look at it in a different perspective than how I did before. I thought that was a good like self-help book to also help with like stress management. Okay, so our last question that we'll bring up here is from YANG.
BYNGO. Sorry, I think of.
Okay, so it says, hi, it's a raunchy subject, but could you guys talk about the stigma around masturbation for girls, especially as opposed to guys? Mel or Janet?
Mel?
I think there's stigma around masturbation for women because we don't talk about it as much as men do, and like I think through like just movies you always like to like joke around the guys with the one that gets exposed to porn at a young age and they start masturbating, and they don't ever showcase women doing it unless it's in porn or it's sexualized, right? But yeah, do you guys masturbate?
No shit, we masturbate.
But you know, honestly, okay, because I think all three of us masturbate. We don't talk about it really, but actually, me and my other best friends, we always talk about masturbation.
Really? Okay, so what do you guys talk about so you can ease us into this conversation?
My friend would be like, I'm really horny. I had to masturbate today because like she's not getting sex. I mean, here's the thing, like There's women that choose not to sleep around when they're single.
Right.
So it's like, how else do you expect them to release their stress?
Exactly.
Right.
That's true.
Let's talk about masturbation. All right, so
So when was the last time you ladies masturbated?
fuck,
Really? This is like a weird conversation or topic because like your parents listen to this.
My mom doesn't.
Podcast,
Mom, you better
right?
not fucking listen to this shit. Last time I masturbated?
Yep.
2 days ago.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, same.
Wait, talk about a question though.
Yeah.
Do you feel guilty masturbating when you're in a relationship?
Oh, that's a good question.
No, because he's traveling right now.
But hey, if he's not?
No, sometimes it's just like you're feeling it and it's convenient and he's not there and you need to like fulfill something.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
double tap.
I actually told I would tell the guys I'm dating, or if we're having sex with a guy, I'd like, yeah, they all know I masturbate. I'm not gonna hide that.
Do you think they feel weird about that, or do they feel they're not performing or
providing enough for you?
Yeah.
Let me think. For the previous guys, I don't think so. They never felt like, am I not doing enough? I'm like, dude, you're not here sometimes.
Yeah, actually, it's funny you asked that because yes, someone has made a comment before about oh, I don't even masturbate now. See how good this is? I'm like, oh, cool. I guess it's a thing, but I still do on the side.
Yeah, right? It's like,
but I'm like, it's still good. But sometimes you just want it at a different time.
Yeah.
or I feel like you also want. This sounds really weird. You want different types of stimulation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
But I think women, you shouldn't feel ashamed for masturbating. It's like, guys do it. You should do it. It's not like you're getting diseases by masturbating, right?
That's true. It's safer than going out there and getting with randos.
Exactly.
So Mel, how do you masturbate?
I don't use a toy.
Do you guys have toys?
I don't.
I don't have one either. Have you ever had one?
No. I mean, I think when you're younger, you think toys are really cool. But then you realize it's not for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've said that before to a friend, and she's like, "Oh, you've never tried the rabbit?" I was like, "I don't even know what that is." But I guess it's one of those. It's just a vibrator.
It's a
that's,
type of, yeah.
pretty popular. I don't know.
It's the two-pronged because of the design is made to fit the vagina in such a way where it stimulates.
The Taurus.
But here's another thing though. I feel like a lot of my mutual girlfriends, when they masturbate, they don't use toys because they don't do penetration when they masturbate. It's all stimulation.
Yeah.
So they don't need
that's
toys.
Actually that's a good point. I would say probably for most women, there isn't usually people don't penetrate, right? Or okay, I can't speak for a lot, but
I know.
I feel like when I speak, who have I talked about? Just you ladies. Then yeah, usually it's stimulation.
Yeah, they
We
don't.
need to talk about
yeah.
this, right? Yeah.
A lot of my friends don't. I mean, maybe you haven't told me, but none of them have toys.
Yeah, me neither.
So maybe that's why, because it's different than being with a guy. When you're with a guy, usually the type of
I agree.
stimulation is through penetration versus when you're by yourself, it's a different sensation that you're not getting usually from a partner.
I agree. There's much more we can talk about with masturbation, but let's not dive.
We can probably have a
Too
whole
deep.
Oh,
episode about it after a bottle of wine or something.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, not right now. We're on coffee and water.
And cold meds.
But just to go back to your question, I just feel like there's probably stigma because of the fact that no one talks about it, and I think women just don't know how to even bring it up to their friends about it too, depending how open they are. Yeah. My friends back home, they're hella raunchy, so they tell me when they're masturbating. Don't talk to me. I'm gonna go watch porn. I was like, okay, bye.
But I also think it starts from in school. We used to have those sex education classes, right? You always talked about I feel like you always talked about the male penis, but you never talked a lot about the vagina for some reason. The first time I saw a vagina was from a tampon box, and it had the figure of sticking something into a vagina. I was like, the fuck is that? Going up where?
Yeah.
I couldn't even figure out which body part that was. I was like, is that my armpit? Where is that? And that's the first time I saw an actual vagina. But during sex ed class, they talked about how to put a condom on a penis, but it never showed what a vagina looked like, I guess, or what was the anatomy of one.
No one really taught you when you're younger, a vagina, you could get pleasure from doing these certain things.
Yeah.
So you kind of just had to figure out yourself versus I
Right.
think growing up, we kind of assume that the male penis, you'll get pleasure just by touching it or sticking it in somewhere, you know?
Right.
So I feel like we just weren't really, I don't remember being taught having sex gives you pleasure.
Or even in media, entertainment, movies, and all of that. That never gets talked about.
Right.
It's always pleasuring the man.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Fuck that.
Yeah, pleasure yourself. All right, thanks again for listening to our delirious episode of Q&A Part 2 for Season 2. We hit, wide array of topics, ending with masturbation. But it is late, and we just want to say thank you again for listening. You can catch us on our social media.
Our handle is at Asian Boss Girl. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And you can also email us at asianbossgirl@gmail.com.
And if you like this episode, you can find us on iTunes at ABG-Asian Boss Girl. Leave us a rating and a review. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Bye.